Greetings, Jerry Ultra Power Gamer coming at you today with a 1995 point bat rep. It's going to be Empire of Dust versus the Undead, and we are doing the scenario Taking Hold. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go ahead and go over the table. What you're seeing here in the upper right-hand corner, we have a height 6 blocking terrain. Down from that, we have a height 6 woods. We have an obstacle. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see a flat difficult terrain. To the left of that, we have 2 height 2 hills. To the left of that, we have another height 6 woods, and barely on your screen you can hardly see, up and ahead of the woods we've got another obstacle, and then to the far left there you can hardly see it, but it is another height 6 blocking terrain. Alright, so right now we're gonna go ahead and go over the armies that we have here. So at the top of the screen, starting on the left, we have a mummy regiment. Next to the mummy regiment, we have a Revenant King on Undead Worm who's got the fly ability. Behind that, we've got another mummy regiment. To the right of that, we've got 2 regiments of Revenant, and they both have undead rats. We've got one in front of the other one. Coming over next to that, we've got a legion of zombies with the brew of sharpness and giant rats. Behind that legion, we've got a necromancer who's got the Myrmidon's amulet, Bane chant, and heal. Coming over again, we've got another legion of zombies. This one has the pipes of terror and also giant rats. Behind them is a necromancer with inspiration, the inspiring talisman, Bane chant, and heal. Next to them is a horde of werewolves with the brew of strength, and behind that is a lich king with heal 6. At the bottom of your screen, starting on the left, we have my Empire of Dust. I've got a mummy regiment, well actually 2 mummy regiments. Behind them I've got a cursed high priest who's got heal and surge, and also has the healing shroud. Next to that I've got a horde of revenants. That horde of revenants has the brew of strength. Next to them I've got 2 hordes of guardian archers. Over next to them is a regiment of oh my god, don't know my army, scavengers. In front of that regiment of scavengers, there is a horde of just plain enslaved guardians. Next to them is another regiment of scavengers. Behind them is a cursed high priest who's got heal, surge, and he also has the Myrmidon's amulet. To the right is going to be a chariot, and the chariot has Pathfinder and also has the Casket of Damnation, so once a turn I can give it an extra 5 for a surge. So that's the setup. We'll be right. Okay, so we're playing Taking Hold. I won the die roll to pick table sides, and I chose the lower half of the table. My opponent, after he placed the center token, he placed the token there. You can see it at the lower right of that woods, and I placed my token, keeping with the tactics video, my basic tactics video number 2. I kind of wanted a tight grouping there, so I placed my token there by the obstacle. Now, my opponent won the die roll to see who would go first, and he opted to give me the first turn, so I was like, okay. Now, just a quick recap for you. The way Taking Hold works is beginning at the end of turn 3 for each player, you gain 1 victory point for every token that you control, every objective market that you actually control. So we're going to see how that works out. Okay, so at the end of my turn 1, Empire Dust turn 1, basically what happened on my left flank, the regiments and the regiments of mummies and the horde of revenants advanced forward. Both guardian archers just did a halt. The guardians moved forward. Both scavengers moved forward. Now, the one scavenger moved forward just outside the woods to be into a scoring position for that objective, and the chariot there moved up just enough to be in scoring position, but also to be out of range of the werewolves, so they couldn't charge me. So at the end of my shooting, between the 2 enslaved guardians and the horde of chariots, I did a total of 6 wounds. Everybody needed 6s to hit because 1, the chariot horde moved, and 2, the guardians were shooting over the obstacles. But I did 6 wounds and was unable to rout him. Okay, so the undead turn 1. On his left flank, the werewolf advanced 9 inches. Both his legions of zombies advanced 5 inches. His entire right flank moved up only about 5 inches. Then his Lich King was able to heal 3 wounds on the werewolves. The Inspiring Talisman Necromancer was able to surge the right zombie legion 3 inches. He said that's exactly what he wanted. It puts them right up on that 1 objective marker. And then the Mirrodin's Amulet Necromancer surges the left zombie legion 6 inches. Once again, he said that's exactly where he wanted. So that's where we end up after turn 1. Okay, here we are at the end of my turn 2. So basically what happened, the chariot moved up to be just over an inch away from the werewolf horde. The scavenger regiment and the enslaved guardian horde just moved up for positioning a little bit. Everyone else in my army did a halt. I didn't want to get too close to get charged there in the center. Combined shooting once again from the 2 enslaved guardian archers and the chariot only did 3 wounds, but then the chariot was surged into the werewolves and did enough wounds to rout them, and so they just kind of repositioned like you see right there. So that basically is the end of my turn 2. Okay, so here we are for the Undead's turn 2. The right zombie legion turns to face my chariot, and the Lich King, he moves behind them. The left zombie legion actually halts. He doesn't want to get them too close so I can't charge them. And then on his right flank, the undead worm advances 5 inches. Mummies behind them advance. Basically, his whole right flank kind of advances. They're on the far left of your screen. That regiment of mummies advances up into the woods a little bit. The undead worm surges the right flank mummies that additional 3 inches, which puts them in the woods. The Mirrodin's Amulet Necromancer surges the rear regiment of revenants, so they butt up against the front regiment of revenants, and that's basically where we're sitting at here. Now, basically, he was looking. I think he didn't want to surge or try to surge the zombie legion. He didn't think he would make that surge if he did it into my chariot, and also he set it up into a position so that if I charge him, he didn't want to be hindered charging me, and he wanted me to be hindered charging him. So this is where we end up for the Undead turn 2. Okay, so here we are, turn 3 for the Empire of Dust. Basically, the first thing I do is the scavenger regiment that was hiding just behind the woods, they do a normal advance up and pivot to land on the obstacle right where you see them there. The other scavenger unit that was closer to the flat difficult terrain, they move into position just to land right there on the other objective marker. The horde of enslaved guardians, they just move forward positioning. Next, the both enslaved guardian archers do a halt. The horde of revenants move forward and advance forward, and they pivot just to put themselves a little bit closer to that zombie legion. Both mummy regiments move up and do a little positioning. The cursed high priest with the healing shroud moves up, staying within inspiring range of both regiments of mummies, and then manages to surge. Well, let's hold off on that. First thing that happened is actually the enslaved guardians, they do a wind blast and blast the zombie legion there to the left by a couple of inches to butt them right up against the regiment of revenants next to them. Then the Cursed High Priest with the Healing Shroud successfully surges the horde of revenants into that zombie legion. Here on the right flank, between combined shooting of the both enslaved guardian archers and the chariot, we're able to do, and a successful surge into the zombie legion. We're able to do a total of 11 wounds, which is not enough to break them, but you know, it's a start. So at the end of turn 3, I jumped ahead again. The horde of revenants, they were able to charge in, and they did a big whopping 12 wounds to the zombie legion. Not enough to do anything, but they bounced back. Into turn 3, I have a total of 2. I've got the lower right hand objective marker, and I've got a higher unit strength. I've got a horde and a scavenger regiment, so I've got a total of 4 versus the zombie legion 3. So it ends up being a score of 2 for the Empire of Dust. Okay, Undead turn 3, basically what we had happen. The brutal zombie legion on my opponent's left flank does a countercharge into my chariot horde. Basically, the left zombie legion there, they do a countercharge into my revenant horde. The front regiment of revenants and the undead worm charge the right, my right mummy regiment. They're on my far left flank. The regiment of mummies that is in the woods does a hinder charge against my unit of mummies, and then both his regiment of revenants and regiment of mummies move up to form a straight battle line with with his legion. Now, basically, he's able to Bane chant, he fails the Bane chant with the Meridian's amulet on the left zombie legion, and but he is able to heal 1 wound. The Lich King is able to heal 3 wounds on the right leg zombie legion, and also failed a Bane chant there. So at the end of the combat there, the zombie legion against the horde, they were only able to do 1 wound. And basically there, the zombie legion charging my horde of revenants, they were able to do a few wounds, but weren't able to break me. And also, along with the double charge on my regiment of mummies, weren't able to break me, didn't do a lot of wounds. And his regiment there on the far flank of mummies versus my mummies, the same. So this is what we're looking at the end of turn 3 for the Undead. Okay, before I talk about this picture, I forgot to mention the Undead scored 1 point because they had a zombie legion and a regiment of revenants within 3 inches of that 1 token in the center of the table. So the score at the end of turn 3 was 2-1 in favor of the Empire of Dust. Okay, so here we are, Empire of Dust turn 4. Well, we had some interesting stuff happen. Here on my right flank, everything did a halt except for the enslaved guardian horde. The enslaved guardian horde did a combined charge with the revenant horde into the zombie legion. The enslaved guardians were able to charge the flank of the zombie legion. Basically, the right regiment of mummies did a counter charge on the undead worm because we were trying to do some points to him just to keep him from being able to fly. And then on my far left flank, the regiment of mummies did a counter charge on his regiment of mummies. So basically what happened here, the Cursed High Priest with the Healing Shroud was able to heal. He basically moved out of arc from that regiment of revenants, was able to heal 6 wounds on the horde of revenants. Basically, between combined shooting from the both enslaved guardian archer hordes and a surge from the chariot, or the Cursed High Priest into the chariot, we were able to rout that legion of zombies and position like you see here. The combined charge in the center of the table routed the legion of zombies there. And basically, I was able to do wounds to the worm to stop him from flying. Into turn 4, I was able to get 3 points because now I've got my horde controlling that center token. So my turn 4, the score is 5-1. Okay, so here we are for the Undead's turn 4. Basically, the Lich King was not able to get out of arc for the chariot, so he decided to charge the rear of my enslaved guardians. The regiment of revenants there with the token on, little green token on them, they decide to charge my horde of revenants. The Undead Worm does a counter charge on the right flank, or excuse me, on the right unit of regiment of mummies I have there, and also combined with the regiment of revenants there, they do a combined charge. They charge him in the flank. Between those two, they're only able to do 6 wounds to the mummies, and the mummies are fine. His regiment of mummies there on the far left of your screen do a counter charge into my regiment of mummies, and that battle's just going to go on and on forever. He's able to Bane chant the Revenant regiment there, but they don't really do any appreciable amount of damage to me, so I'm fine. The Lich King that charged the back of my enslaved guardians didn't do any damage to me at all, so we're fine. At the end of turn 4, for the Undead, basically we are, the Undead still has 1 point, and I still have my score, so we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are, turn 5 for the Empire of Dust. The Cursed High Priest on the right there, who was in the woods, he moves out of the woods just to start getting ready to be able to help out in the action there. Both Scavengers just position, they stay where they are. They're going to just be scoring units. The Horde of Chariots does a charge on the Lich King, only did 6 wounds to him, unable to break him. The enslaved guardians that are on the hill, they do a wind blast on the mummies there and push them back into the woods. The Horde of Revenants does a charge on that, or countercharge on that regiment of Revenants there. The Cursed High Priest does a little bit of a heal, get that little damage off of them. The regiment of Revenants there on the right does a counter charge again into the Undead Worm, does some more damage to him, but is unable to break him. And there on the left, the regiment of mummies does a counter charge into his regiment of mummies, does a few wounds. That battle's going to go on for a little while. Now, both hordes of enslaved guardian archers are able to do 7 wounds to that regiment of revenants that's on the hill there, but was unable to break them. So at the end of my turn 5, I end up getting another 3 scoring points. So that's going to put me up to a total of 8. We'll be right back. Okay, so Undead turn 5. The Lich King moves out of harm's way between the chariot and the horde of enslaved guardians. The Revenant regiment counters the Revenant horde and is unable to do anything. The mummies move out of the woods, and are surged into the Revenant horde. Those two are not able to do enough damage to rout the horde. Both the Undead Worm and the regiment of Revenants in the flank of my mummy unit, they charge in again, but they are unable to rout me again. Good old regen helps out a lot. And basically the regiment there on his far right flank does another counter charge into my regiment of mummies and is unable to do anything. So at the end of turn 5, Undead still are not scoring anymore. They still only have 1. Okay, Empire Dust turn 6. Basically the chariot just pivots and advances into the Undead deployment zone. The Revenant Horde countercharges the Revenant Regiment and is able to rout them, and then they just position as you see there. The left enslaved Guardian Archers pivot and move close to the flank of the regiment of revenants that was on the hill. And then the cursed high priest that was in the woods, he moves a little closer, and he's able to surge those enslaved guardians into the flank of the revenant of regiments, and they're able to rout them. The mummies do a counter charge on the undead worm, do a lot of wounds, and they're able to waver him. Basically, my mummies there on the far left flank do a little damage, but as I said, that dance continues on. I gain another three at the end of turn 6. I gain another 3 points for controlling all 3 of those tokens. Puts me up to 11. Okay, so the undead turn 6. Basically, what happens? The mummies charge my revenant horde, and they get bane chanted. But they're unable to rout the revenant horde, of course. The undead worm moves backwards. It's wavered. We get multiple heals on him and get him down. Like, they're able to heal 6 wounds on him. The regiment of his regiment of mummies once again countercharges my regiment of mummies. That battle just keeps going on. He's unable to rout him. And we roll for a turn 7, so we'll be right back with the last turn. Okay, Empire does final turn 7. Well, the horde of revenants countercharges the mummies, do some wounds, but are unable to rout them. They're on my far left flank. That regiment of mummies is finally able to rout his regiment of mummies. My right unit of mummies, basically the enslaved guardians on the hill, are able to shoot at the undead worm, and then I'm able to surge the mummies into the undead worm, and I'm able to take him out. So I get another 3 points into turn 7. I end up with 14. Turn 7 for my opponent, basically he does a counter charge again with his mummies, but is unable to do anything, and he's got 3 characters on the table, but that's about it. So the final game score 14-1 in favor of the Empire of Dust. Basically, my battle plan worked how I wanted. I was able to roll the right flank, my right flank kind of in an oblique line, and systematically take out his units there. And my center was able to hold. I was able to keep them around while I was able to close that flank down. I think in hindsight, looking back, my opponent not taking the first turn, that was a little bit of a detriment to him. Not moving when he had the opportunity to move his werewolves into a position where he couldn't be shot at by all of my shooting. I mean, he basically gave me more than 2 turns of, he gave me 2 turns of combined fire from 3 units, and he wasn't able, his one healing character was not able to keep up with that. But he's learning, and he had a good time. I had a good time. Thanks for watching. Would love to hear any questions or comments.